What is up, Flick Connection? This is Darren, here to help you get more out of movies, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, Michael Mann's Heat. Now, I recently recommended Heat on one of my Netflix lists. You can check that video out. I'll put a link in the description. But I got so many comments on how much of you love this movie. I wanted to spread the love even more and really just kind of dive into this movie, talk about it. So what I'm going to do is really just go through some of the things I find really interesting about the background of this movie, things that were done, things that have influenced this movie, things it has influenced. So really no spoilers. If you've never seen Heat, you can take this as just a nice long recommendation. If you have seen Heat, this should add to your viewing experience. Like if it's been a while since you watched it, watch what I have to say, go watch it again soon, and you should enjoy it even more just knowing some of the neat little facts about this movie, because it is so good, and I'm going to go over some of the reasons why it's so good. Then I'm going to give you some recommendations of other movies you can hunt down that you'll love if you love Heat. Now, Heat was released in 1995, directed by Michael Mann, and it really is his masterpiece, and it's just a masterpiece of filmmaking. And he wasn't even originally going to direct it. He had written it before he did some of his earlier movies. He really got famous from writing and directing Miami Vice, the original TV show. Great crime show. If you've never seen it, you can watch it on Hulu and some other services. Really well done. Really cool 80s vibe. But he wrote this during that time. Never planned to direct it, was just going to sell it, and thank God he directed it, because I don't think anybody else could have brought this movie to life the way he did. And this movie's really accredited with making Los Angeles look beautiful on film at a time when filmmakers were struggling with that. So LA is a notoriously ugly city on film. There's a lot of concrete, not a lot of greenery, just not a lot of color, and so it doesn't come across on film very well. But Michael Mann made this city come to life. There's lights, there's neon, there's city lights, there's the blue sort of hue of the evening, you know, sort of the dusk twilight, and it just looks incredible, and it really has influenced a bunch of other filmmakers since then. One director heavily influenced by this is Christopher Nolan, most specifically with The Dark Knight. The look and feel, the color palette of The Dark Knight is taken almost directly from Heat. I'm showing you some side-by-side comparisons now, but you can see that twilight color he used, just the look at the city, the color palette of the city, the way Gotham really kind of looks and comes to life in The Dark Knight. It looks almost like LA's Heat. It just really has a similar look to it, more so than Batman Begins or The Dark Knight Rises. And I've always really loved the look of The Dark Knight more so than the other two, and I could never quite put my finger on it. I knew it was similar things, but I never connected it to Heat until I read that Christopher Nolan has stated on the record that he used Heat as inspiration for the cinematography and color palette of The Dark Knight. Now, I can't do this video without talking about the shootout. The shootout in Heat is one of the best, if not the best, shootouts in movie history, because it's one of the most technically accurate. Now, what we get in shootouts a lot of times is pop, pop, bang, bang. They're a little better now, but gunfire is never as loud and intense, almost never as loud and intense as it would be in real life. And that's partially because gunfire in real life, if you've never fired a weapon, it is deafening, to the point where if you go to a gun range, you have to wear ear protection with most calibers. It will permanently damage your hearing. And so what you feel in the movies isn't really accurate at all. Somehow Heat managed to capture it, particularly in the street shootout. And one of the ways they captured it is they mic'd the entire set. And the set is actually the streets of Los Angeles. They mic'd it. They captured the sound during the shoot processed it and reused it, whereas normally they will use blanks, there'll be pops and stuff, but they'll dub the gunfire in almost all movies. Sometimes they fake muzzle flashes and everything digitally now. But Heat, everything's very real, except there's not actual bullets flying. It is so real and such a good example of tactics that the military, actually, the U.S. Marines actually use this as a training video. It's not their only training video, but they use it to help illustrate things like how to retreat when under fire, how to reload when under fire, and it accurately depicts all of that. So really, really well done when it comes to that. And knowing that adds to the experience for sure, but even not knowing it, it's so well done that you know when you're watching it that something feels real about it.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Neither do I.
I don't much want to either.
Neither do I.
Now, this movie was also the first time that Al Pacino and Robert De Niro had been on screen together. They were both in The Godfather Part 2, but because Robert De Niro starred in flashbacks as his father, he was, not in the same time frame. They were never on screen together until Heat. And they were both seen as sort of just the top of their game actors, really in the crime genre specifically, so that made this movie that much more epic. Now, the famous scene where they first confront each other in Heat is the first time they're on screen together ever, and they didn't rehearse that scene. Now, from what I've heard, the take that you see in the movie is supposedly take 11, although something sounds fishy about that. I would imagine they used maybe the bulk of take 11 and then pieces of others. That said, they didn't rehearse it because the two actors agreed they wanted some unfamiliarity between them. They didn't want it to feel, they didn't want to feel too comfortable. You'll notice that Neil always wears gray suits. In the entire movie, it's a different shade of gray, without really any exceptions. And one of the logics behind that was he needs to blend into the background. And remember how I was saying LA is very full of concrete, no color? Gray would have helped him blend into his surroundings. Not like a chameleon, not like he can stand against the wall and you can't see him, but just he's elusive. He's never really standing out. He's sort of just blending into the crowd at all times.
She got a great ass, and you got your head all the way up it.
That famous line from this movie, totally ad-libbed. The reaction on Hank Azaria's face, 100% genuine. Had no idea Al Pacino was getting ready to go Brando on him. Kevin Gage, the actor that plays Waingro, the baddie of the film, if you will, he was actually in prison for a few years, and in prison, he was referred to as Waingro because this movie's so popular. Now, another thing about him, if you look, you'll notice that he and Ted Levine look very similar as far as actors go. I mean, they're not twins, but they have a very similar look to them. If you look closer, you'll notice a lot of the actors have similar looks to them. This movie really is the ultimate cop and robber movie, and on each side there's a doppelganger. There's Val Kilmer is one of the bad guys. One of the cops, who really has like no lines in the movie, looks almost exactly like Val Kilmer. Dennis Haysbert is the getaway driver. Very few lines for him, but one of the cops, black guy, similar build, similar like strong facial features, just similar size. Danny Trejo is one of the bad guys. There is a Latino actor with just kind of a strong, gritty face. There is an exact copy, and Al Pacino and Robert De Niro are essentially interchangeable as far as like bad guy, good guy. They could have swapped roles, and that's done on purpose. The movie really sort of tries to blur the lines between the bad guys and the good guys, that they're essentially the same type of person. As a person, they're not that different, but they've chosen to go different routes, and they would kill each other if they needed to. And this is just expressed very directly in that iconic dinner scene. coffee shop scene, I guess we'll call it, because they don't actually eat dinner. But that subtlety, it took me a lot of viewings before I noticed. I'm like, man, that guy looks just like Val Kilmer, and that guy looks like him. And then to even back up that theory, Ted Levine, who plays one of the detectives, was actually picked for the role of Waingro. But this is following him being Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, and he didn't want to start getting typecast where he got stuck as always being the psychotic bad guy. So he requested to be one of the detectives. But that right there proves that they're so interchangeable. Thought that was a really, really cool way to go. Earlier this week, I recommended another Michael Mann movie called Thief, starring James Caan. It's early Michael Mann, but it is so good. If you like Heat, this is a must-watch, and it's a must-watch a lot of people have missed. It just got added to Amazon Prime, like as of the 1st, so I highly recommend watching it if you have Amazon Prime. Huh? Similarly, Collateral, most people have seen that. Tom Cruise basically is like another version of Neil. He looks very much like him, the gray suit, the gray hair. It's a similar thing. I love that movie a lot. Like, I really, really like it. It's not as good as Heat, but it is kind of a spiritual sequel in a lot of ways. There's so many similarities, and the look is so similar, and that's why I love that movie, just because it reminds me so much of Heat. Don't like this one as much as the other two, but it's so beautiful, and that's Miami Vice. Another Michael Mann project. I promise I'm going to recommend some movies not directed by Michael Mann. I've got one more, but that movie looks beautiful. It actually looks better than Heat. Like, Michael Mann had really figured out how to get that look, and what he's doing a lot of times is he's mixing digital and film. That is really done heavily with Collateral and Miami Vice. Miami Vice even more so, where it's more exaggerated. When it's digital, you can really tell it's digital. When it's film, it's wider. You can really tell that it's film, and you can tell when you watch that movie the format of the stock changes, and that's what adds some flavor to that movie. The weird thing about that movie is it really has this long, drawn-out romance in the middle of it with an Asian woman. The weird thing about that is Michael Mann definitely has something for Asian women, because his last movie, Black Hat, which I really did not like, it really just lost me in terms of story, romance with an Asian woman. The love interest, Edie, in Heat was originally supposed to be Chinese. So Michael Mann's got something going on there that kind of just watered down, didn't ruin it, but watered down Miami Vice for me. I wanted to like that movie so much more, and I can almost say the same for Public Enemies. That movie, I love everything about it. I like Johnny Depp, Christian Bale, the Prohibition era, John Dillinger, it's Michael Mann, but for some reason, that movie just didn't click for me the way I wanted to, but it's still just a really great crime drama. Now, for a better crime drama that is absolutely inspired by Heat to some degree is The Town, directed by Ben Affleck. Now, I'm not a big fan of Ben Affleck, but this movie is so well executed. It's also like a spiritual sequel to Heat. It's got so many similar elements to it. It's not as good. It really isn't. But even with that, it is so, so good. It's so fun to watch. The characters are engaging, all of that. I know I'm gushing about another movie that you've seen, but that one is another one where the shooting is fairly technically precise, which is surprising coming from such a huge liberal like Ben Affleck. If you can't get enough of Robert De Niro robbing people, Ronan is really fantastic. None of these movies are as good as Heat, but Ronan's almost like Heat in a lot of ways, but it's uglier. It takes place in Europe. It's ugly in the sense that it's like drab in the way that it looks, but instead of a big shootout, which there are shootouts in it, but instead of an iconic shootout, Ronan is famous for an iconic chase sequence. I've been sort of mulling over like how to do a video on that chase sequence, because it is such a good display of how to do a good chase sequence up until the release of Fury Road, which sort of blew everything away in terms of how you film a chase and keep the geography in a way that it makes sense. Ronan does that very, very well. If you just want to watch that chase sequence, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description below. Another badass heist movie that a lot of people haven't seen, despite the fact that it stars Clint Eastwood and Jeff Bridges, is Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Now, I own this one on DVD. It was hard to find there. I'm not sure where you're going to find it to watch it. I do know it has appeared on Netflix at times, so you can look. You might find it on a streaming service, but it is a really cool little heist movie. It's small. It's a small heist, but it's more about the criminals and the problems that they have, and they get hung up, and they you know, it's good. It's got some weirdness, some 70s weirdness to it, like a guy has a trunk full of live white rabbits, but it's a cool 70s kind of drug era heist movie. Sexy Beast is another really cool movie that definitely has a look similar to Heat, but it is a slow burn because the heist doesn't happen till the end. In fact, it's more of a mafia movie about a boss trying to recruit a retired mob man into a heist. That's mostly what you're watching, but Ben Kingsley was nominated for an Academy Award for this. Ray Winston gives an incredible performance. The movie's beautiful, and then you get this really cool heist. I don't want to blow how they do it, but it's not like anything you've seen before. And for some newer ones, Hell or High Water is one of my favorite, most recent heist movies. Jeff Bridges again. Great performance by him, Ben Foster, Chris Pine. If you missed that one in, I think, 2016, put it at the top of your list. Really, really cool heist movie about a couple of brothers that are knocking off banks in order to essentially keep their land in Texas. Really, really cool stuff. Good shootouts. It's different than what you've seen before, but it's also going to be really familiar, kind of like a modern Western. And then for you younger viewers, if you liked Baby Driver from last year and you somehow have not seen Heat, you need to graduate, put on your big boy britches, and watch Heat. It's a little slower, it's not as funny and fun, but it is the best heist movie ever made. If you want to dispute that in the comments below, you're welcome to. I encourage you to try. I will probably respond to you, but I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. But thanks for watching this one, and you will see me next time.